drawn from different parts of the talent perspective, starting with our moderator, Claire Barrett. Welcome, Claire.
Hi, John. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. So as Mehdi mentioned when he welcomed everyone to the conference, you are the leader of the Women and APIs initiative, in addition to a bunch of other things. But I think the leadership of the Women and APIs gives you a unique perspective on how to build talent and how to encourage organizations to bring a diversity of talent in order to build their capabilities. So I'd like to ask you to welcome the panel.
Thank you, John. And we couldn't have a better qualified group of people today joining us in Singapore on representing many different areas. We've got Keith Carter, Associate Professor at University of Singapore. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you. Welcome. Glad to be here.
Lovely to see you. We've got Dr. Sebastian Wedeniwski from Standard Chartered, where he's the Global Head of Cloud and DevOps. Welcome, Sebastian.
Hi, Claire.
Great to see you. And we've got So-Young Kang. She's founder and CEO of Gnowbe. Welcome, So-Young.
Hi. Nice to see everyone.
Lovely to see you. And last but by no means least, Chelvin Low, Director at SkillsFuture in Singapore. She looks after the Job Skills Insights Division. Welcome, Chelvin. So this is a big topic. I'm sure we could have a conversation with each of you for probably hours on this. But I'd love to kick off just to understand a bit about why it's important in building pipeline. Keith, you're deep in the students' education sector. Why is it important to you, and what does it mean for you and the people that the community that you're working with?
Really, this is a critical time. We don't have enough technical people, enough people in fintech, and there's a very, as I hear, shallow talent market here in Singapore and around the world, actually, as companies are trying to digitize, as countries as well, governments are trying to go e-government and so forth. So but at the same time, there's another problem. Lots of people are out of jobs. The traditional roles in retail and tourism have all been impacted very, very hard with COVID-19. So the skills gap has never been wider. Well, maybe not since 100 years ago when electricity and the telephone and automobiles were hitting the road. Today we have APIs and blockchain and NFTs and everything else getting into place, and people need to know what they are, how to use them, and how to develop on them. So it's just an exciting time to be able to contribute in people's skills conversion.
Great. And Chelvin, you're working with government and a lot of directions and policy. What are some of the big picture things that are setting the importance for you in this at the moment?
Thanks so much, Claire. Can you hear me now?
Yes, no problem.
Yes. Yes. So we, SSG, SkillsFuture Singapore, we are the skills agency in Singapore. We do a lot of work to influence the policies as well as the directions of our skills training, our continuing education and training ecosystem to make sure that it's nimble, it's industry responsive. And we also provide funding for a lot of the new areas, the emerging skills, not just in Singapore, but also globally. I think in the area of digital talent, there's been a lot of conversations that sort of exploded in the last 2 years. And what's more important for us that we have seen is a lot more innovative, different pathways for different tech talent, tech or non-tech talent to come onto this journey. And we've seen a lot more innovative programs coming up. And we've also seen non-traditional sources of workforce coming on board. And it's been quite exciting to see that actually it's possible. It's possible to convert non-tech workforce over to the technology space. And you can do it not just at the pre-employment level, you can also do it when you are mid-careerist. And there are lots of opportunities going to different sectors. It's not just the ICT sector, it's the retail sector, it's the healthcare sector, it's the education sector, like where So-Young comes from. There's a huge demand, and the job demand is just way beyond the supply today.
A great segue, I think, to Sebastian. You're working at Standard Chartered, representing, if you like, today our large organization view. Why is it so important to you, your organization, your customers, and your people, and what are you doing about it?
Yes, and maybe also representing in that sense, like, with a long history of a very traditional industry, and like Standard Charter, 160 years plus, and we have done, and we have even in front of us a huge transformation, because like these industries are changing completely. Yeah? So getting so digitalized, getting so much technology based, that like the future of banking is not just like a branch anymore. And the point is, like, in that sense, and specifically also in my responsibility there, is how we are getting all this into the bank context. Yes, so it's like specifically I just finished now the second batch with 75 grads for my program here, all with cloud knowledge and all of that, coming from 5 different universities in as a grads program, enablement program. Because the point what we are doing is, like, on the other side, we need all this new technical expertise, and it's great with coming with all the energy and the experience, like 19 are just from Singapore. And then it's like the challenge what we still have, and I say this is maybe with many other industries as well, is like, okay, bringing this knowledge now into a context. And the context is like now the banking context, and understanding, okay, what does it mean, risk, compliance, legal regulations, all of this kind of things. And then, like, this is a 6 months, a 6 weeks program, with all their expertise and with all of this where they're coming into the pipeline. Now they're getting some very tangible problems, like, so how we are doing credit decisioning, how we are doing this, and then solve it on cloud, solve it on new technologies, solve it now with APIs. And it's a great things to see. They take the technical knowledge, they take with all the experiences where they are coming from, and they bring this with a problem statement before we are putting them really into the actual projects. Yes, and this is now what happened now with the first batch. They finished after the 6 weeks. Now they are there, and they are getting in actual projects where we are doing all the adoption, and they are very engaged, because they make something real. Yes, so, and yes, why we are doing it? Yes, because we need a lot of this new thinking in the culture, rather than just, okay, the traditional way how we have done banking in the past.
Okay. So Young, you probably have maybe representing perhaps more of the kind of startup SME operation. You may not have the time to even allow for people to have 6 weeks worth of time to get up to speed. What are some of the trends that you're seeing, and why is this so important in the sectors that you're supporting?
Yeah, I know. I think similar. I mean, I think there's a global, we are calling it the Great Resignation, right? And I think across the board, whether you're a large company or whether you're a startup, you're seeing massive movement of talent, both across companies, globally, and across countries. And so I think that the need then to constantly stay ahead, there's the technical things, that Keith was talking about, but there's also really the soft skills and really the ability to communicate well, to really have leadership development skills, management, critical thinking, and all of, kind of the softer skills as well, which are really important. And because we're working in a remote environment, I think what it's done is it's exacerbated really the need for some of these softer skills, because you don't have someone sitting in the same office with you quite in the same way. And I don't even know if most companies have returned fully, to in-person work as well. So now the things that we took for granted before of having a mentor or someone in the room with you is no longer there. So we really have to think differently then about the softer skills. How do you communicate? Self-management, prioritization skills, things that I started working many, many years ago that you take for granted of how you learn those. And now, this new batch of people coming in to the workforce, they never learned those things, So it's really, and how do you really absorb that through a screen? And so I think that so there's both ends. There's the people learning the new skills, and then the managers and leaders. How do we lead people in that way, in a remote way. So there's also a new set of capabilities that we have to learn as well. So management, leadership, all of those things across, from senior people as well to junior. So we're seeing that across the board, the need to engage and think about different creative ways of engagement are also really important skills as well.
And given that some of this stuff is, can no longer just be absorbed, it has to be, I guess, taught or facilitated.
Yeah.
Keith, what are some of your observations on how almost like the delivery of getting skills absorbed and understood by people? How's this changing in the new world?
Collaboration is key. Things are moving so fast, as So Young mentioned. You can't just do things on your own. I think API Days represents that need for collaboration, that demonstrates the ability for it. Getting people to understand it, having them work together in teams is hard. And this Zoom environment, people are tired of it. And so it's so important to get people to meet together for coffee. But even that can be hard because of COVID, this reason and that thing and what have you. We're almost maybe not used to meeting in person again. So the challenge is real, getting people to work together on teams. And I won't mention the company, but someone who joined a company last year said, I haven't met my team. I went to the office, all the doors are closed. I showed up for the first day. HR wasn't even in the office. I just had to call them. And it's been a year, and I've just been working from home the entire year. That's what the person said. That's amazing, right? So very difficult how do you teach to collaborate with people? How do you teach the fundamentals we used to take for granted? Hey, get together. Let's meet up by the water cooler, discuss this thing. It's not so easy. You have to schedule to just do anything. So difficult, I would put it, Claire.
I sometimes ask myself, though, whether the generation coming into the workforce now, and I know a lot of the great programs that you're running are for people pivoting careers, but whether some of the people coming in are used to collaborating socially via screens and digital contact, and whether that means they're more ready in this new workforce. What are people's observations of kind of what people are seeking and how ready they are?
Maybe Claire, maybe to jump the inside and a couple of experiences we see here, and especially like with Standard Charter in 42 markets plus and all of that, and different development centers and so on, and especially like the last 2 years how they evolved. We definitely need to learn how we are getting something back, because what happened is like exactly this point, Keith, with collaboration is a very different way, because now the collaboration got limited to transactions and very much in a sense of like, okay, I have this task, let me do this task. So, and what is the outcome, especially, in my area where we are with a lot of engineers, and they're lacking usually soft skills. But it's like the point is that, number one, you see across the board the belonging is gone. Yes, so that the people, do I really belong to this company, or do I belong now to a task and to do this? So that is a big thing. What you see that people, okay, I'm going now there, I'm going there. Oh, I'm looking for better offerings, and I'm going there. Will be there really happy and so on. So the belonging is one thing. What we are really also with the new workforce and with all of this is existing. Yes, is it good or bad? I have my own opinion, but the point, this is really something what we are facing. The second thing, because we got so transactional, at least on the engineer side, what I see in problem solving and all of that, they get more the impression no one is listening to me. Yes, so and because they got so isolated, and yes, what was usually sitting in a big office having this collaboration and so on, then you got always the impression, okay, yes, the management is listening to me, the people leader are listening to me, then even my colleagues are listening to me. Now that is the second thing what we see, all this kind of frustration. Yes, so what is going beyond of just doing this transaction. So these are the two major things what I see: belonging and being listening is, I think, something what we need to maybe relearn and also see how we are going into this kind of better collaboration to move forward.
I think it's so important to be thinking about, from the individual's perspective, what they're getting. We have this big war for talent or need for building pipeline, and what is it that's driving them? I'd be interested, maybe Chelvin, if you've been doing some kind of research or you've got feedback on how are people kind of committing and enrolling, and what are some of the things that are making it's successful for people to not just sign up for these types of things, but actually to see them through and really commit to that lifelong learning that we talk a lot about.
Thanks so much, Claire. I think there are a couple of factors here, and what Sebastian said is very true. The environment is extremely important. What we've seen in programs where we see a lot more learning take place, it's when the workplace environment is very conducive. There's a structured way. There's a structured environment where the workforce actually can pick up the skills and can practice the skills and can obtain feedback on the skills. And this practicing can be part of a project work. It could be part of just a specific task that you do, but you get feedback from your colleagues or from your supervisors or from your different levels of your colleagues, for example, your peers, for example, right? So we find that there are a lot more, even though the environment today, some organizations have gone back to hybrid, but there are some that still, even for SSG, we are quite, I think we probably spend 70% of our time still working from home, about 30% coming back to the office. But we do have very structured way of, for example, ensuring that we still maintain the camaraderie and the opportunities to feedback to one another. And I think in many of the organizations that we've seen that have done very good workplace learning, this is something that they work very hard on. The safe environment where they put together for the workforce to learn, that's one thing, right? And I think some of the big firms that we've seen have resources to do that. Increasingly, we also seen some of the smaller, the small, medium enterprises doing that as well. And that's where I think the ability to connect and the ability to retain your staff is so important. The other thing I wanted to mention from the skills acquisition perspective, right? The way we see it is from a skills training perspective, it's not just about going for a class. I think he will agree with me, it's not just going for a training program. It's really about ensuring that there's sufficient learning that takes place, that the skills application that takes place. And as you apply the skills, you get feedback and you acquire, it sort of builds in you a certain kind of a skill sets within you, right? So it's that virtual cycle. And we've seen learning programs today that does very good outcome is when they design this learning and this virtual cycle into learning programs, and there's regular feedback. So we find this is very effective, and we think that going forward with learning technologies being so prevalent and so available, actually it's a plus, because now you can learn anywhere and everywhere. You can basically learn, you can have your own time to learn, right? It's personalized learning already, right? And yet, if you can create a space where the workforce can come together, your peers can come together to discuss notes, and you can use technology to your advantage, actually the learning outcomes could be better. But we just have to harness and make sure we don't leave it to chance.
I think that's great feedback. And in fact, we've got a question from Nasha in the on the online chat, which sort of relates around this, but particularly asking for a difference between academic, noting there's a difference between academic qualifications and practitioner training for small SMEs and organizations. But we need more technical skills training for APIs and data science. So calling out a couple of those pieces in specifically. Would someone like to be able to answer Nasha's question there in the context of SMEs? So youre?
Yeah, no, so I think, actually, I just want to also build on kind of what Chelvin was saying as well. And then I can Yeah, because I think the important part, so there's two pieces of what Sebastian was saying as well in terms of connecting. And so I think that there is a really powerful way of using technology. And of course, Chelvin, we've worked together, I think with all of everyone on the call here, of using technology to create this human connection. And I think it's really about social and group-based learning. So it's the idea that, and I think typically we had, in the first phase of digital or e-learning, it's a very solitary experience. I get a bunch of videos and I'm by myself on my device, whether it's laptop or phone, and I'm going through that experience alone. And I think what COVID has done is really shown like just really the hunger for human connection and having group-based experiences, even from onboarding to things like, one of the stories that I love to share is, during COVID, we did this daily pulse and this daily mood meter where every day we were just like having fun, and it's that human connection, which is not just about tasks. And the interesting thing is, to Sebastian's point, that we have developers who I had never seen before, because on Zoom they never turn their cameras on. Not all, but most of my developers, right? And so it's really hard to move beyond like a task-based work environment when you don't even see each other. All of a sudden, when we were basically doing this daily mood meter, right, in Gnowbe, and we were using, of course, we eat our own dog food, right? So we use Gnowbe to do it. What I was seeing pictures of their kids. I was seeing photos of their work environment, their cats and dogs, because people who are maybe not as comfortable putting their screen on during a Zoom call might be more comfortable texting, sharing things about themselves, and they feel safer. So there's something about that where I got to know them, and I can honestly say I got to know them in a more human way thanks to the technology. And that was really, really powerful. Now you extend that, and that was just fun and games. It was just like, hey, take a picture of your new office, and then my developers were like, this was my old office, and my new office is exactly the same because I was always working remotely, right? It was just like, and then we were joking, but it was fun. So the whole idea was that we were laughing and having fun, and basically enjoying each other in a group environment, but asynchronously because we're in different time zones. So you can still have the feeling of being connected and belonging. And that's like this idea. I think that's so, so important that we feel like we belong. And then you now extend that to the learning experience, which is the same.
That's right.
Then you're learning together. So even if, I'm going to sleep and Chelvin's awake, I can still comment on what Chelvin shared. I can say, hey, Chelvin, I really loved your point. Can you share more about that? And then we can have a discussion. So this whole idea of social learning, social engagement, social communication, to give people a sense of belonging to a community, I think is so important. It's always been important. And I think it's just even more important when you can have that water cooler talk. So I don't know if that directly addresses the question, but I feel like, sometimes tech is seen to be very dehumanizing, and that doesn't have to be the case. And so I think it's really important to understand how to leverage technology in ways that are humanizing.
I could not agree with you more in terms of that human connection point. Something actually in the Women in APIs community that we've done.
Absolutely.
And we've run, we're about helping people be seen and heard and helping them build skills with speaking and writing in this virtual world, and just connecting in these sorts of formats can be very humanizing, as you say, across geographic boundaries that we hadn't kind of thought of before. I might ask.
Can I add one point, Claire? Sorry, can I just add one point? I just want to say that it's not just technical skills, it's not just the behavioral skills, not just the workplace environment. I think there's an increasing awareness that you need to workplace safety and workplace inclusion itself, what we call care skills. It's important, and it's something that the skill you need to build in. You need to incorporate that clearly and deliberately. So we're starting to see in a lot of the organizations that we work with, the HR, the learning and development organizations, the business units, take it upon themselves to develop a set of care skills. When we say care economy skills, right? These are your workplace inclusivity skills, you're building inclusivity, you're building a safe environment into the organization. And I think there's increasing understanding that these are areas that you cannot forget about it. These are core skill sets that organizations should have. Technical skills definitely is to get the job done, right? Behavioral skills, because you set a certain area about how you a certain culture in terms of how we behave together, right? But there's also this part about caring for one another. There's this part about the well-being of one another, and how do we build that into the DNA of organizations today, especially organizations who are really genuine about keeping your workforce and developing them.
I think this is such a fascinating topic. I remember hearing the CEO of GitHub being interviewed at the very start of the pandemic on what were some of the challenges with managing, in his case, a 2,000 workforce, completely remote community of digital specialists. And he said that he felt the new leadership that was required of running a remote workforce was to be really good at writing, and the previous leadership skills have been very good at talking. And I thought that was a really intriguing insight, that communication needed to be clear. And I think these new technologies that you're referring to, these new different, how do you show that care, that humanity in the way that actually you write as well. Maybe Keith, tell us a little bit about some of the education space that you're in at the university in creating some of these humanistic ways of working. You talked a lot about team collaboration, about human leadership.
Well, it all starts off with the idea that people come to NUS not to come just to NUS, but they want to go someplace else. They want to end up in Sebastian's company or over at So Young's company. And so we have to start with that in mind. And so when we created the FinTech SG program, we met with institutions, we met with companies, we met with everyone, all the stakeholders that could be involved, Stand Chartered Ventures and other companies as well. And so then we began to say, okay, we're going to teach the technical skills, the front end, back end, APIs, of course. John Shields, a big teacher in that program as well. We thank him greatly for that. And then also we wanted to teach the 4 E's and a P that were Jack Welch's General Electric, when he was General Electric head. The 4 E's are energy, being able to have resilience, we call it in Singapore. Energize, bring lots of hope and positive ideas to the team. The ability to have edge, yes or no. And then execute, get it done, no matter what. And critical in this age, because Sebastian talked about this, people jump from here and there. We also teach passion. Stick with it. Finish. Make sure the customer's happy. See them use it. Get the value out of it. And then consider leaving. Don't just, okay, I got something over here. Let's go. I also personally like to add 2 more things. Sometimes it's not enough to have those, is prayer and praise. But that's me personally. That's just my personal view. The other aspect is to be able to embed that into the class. Is we have this capstone project. So like Chelvin said, we teach them the skills, but then they do a capstone either with a company or with a curated project that we've brought in ideas from multiple companies. And we say, okay, now you need to demonstrate. You need to put your portfolio out there. And so they create a web page about themselves. They begin to create, who's brand me. Then they go and actually apply it into the capstone, and they have to work on this team. It's too intense, it's too pressurizing to do by themselves. And so that makes them come together. And then they meet at the, Bishan Library. They meet at various places, even during this COVID situation, whenever they could. And ultimately they display it. And the most important aspect is that they work on it from an international perspective. They don't just look at it. It's so easy to say, let's build a company in Singapore. No. We say, look, it can be in Singapore, but it has to be international, because Singapore is a small place for a company and that goes out internationally, right? So Young. So we want to make sure they're looking outside and internationalizing themselves. And when they realize, hey, wait a second, the person in Indonesia is getting paid 5 times less than me, potentially. The person in Vietnam, 8 times, then they realize, wow, the competition is fierce, and there's a lot of hunger out there as well to get into these roles. Then they begin to say, okay, not only do I have to, be involved and learn and sit and learn, but I have to love this. I have to desire it, and then go out. When they go to get that job, then it's not just a job anymore. We hope it's a passion for them.
Sebastian, you're on the receiving end, if you like, of talent coming through programs such as this. What are some of the the things that are facing organizations like yours in this global perspective? Because everybody's one tab away from the next job, really, arguably. What are some of the things that you're doing to kind of think about and help? Help people, be ready in Southeast Asia in this space.
It's actually a very, very good topic, and a serious topic. It's like, look, and it's what we put under the umbrella, aspiration versus attrition. Yes. So, and the point is like, just referencing like this second batch with the 75 people, what we brought just from the universities together and across 4 countries. Yes. So China, Malaysia, India, and Singapore. And it was, first of all, also great to see how they loved it. So like he said, it's like, okay, they got in their own squads, and then with the problem statements to do this, and then this was really cross-country working, what was sometimes also a language barrier, so that they have to really also experience with a different culture, with a different thinking and all of that. But that was the good things. Yeah. So now coming to exactly to your point, what we see, and this is like maybe also related a bit like this to the attrition and to the be hungry, because it's like, okay, what makes me happy? What is my motivation? What is the point to keep the people also motivated, that they get to the end, yeah, so that they are not always get distracted. Oh, there's something maybe better, there's maybe something better. Yeah, so it's always like a feeling that they are trying to escape. Yeah, so it's not like, oh, they are following a target, and with this target, really I want to reach this target, and then I'm thinking about my next career growth and going there. So what we are doing, and these are a couple of quite complex topic, Claire, but definitely, and this is where we have invested significantly now also in specific career paths. Yeah, so as you can imagine, complex bank, usually you not have an engineering career path. So we have created dedicated engineering career paths that people can really grow there. What does it mean to get a distinguished engineer? What does it mean to be very senior, and so on? And also then to see the diversity of skills, what is needed across all of that to create a target thinking. Yeah, so to also motivate people, not just to say, okay, I have now this job, and actually, okay, when I get a better compensation somewhere else, then I go there and I'm doing there my job. Yeah, so it's really also to get a bit back to say, look, I'm not looking for fully loyal people, but it's more like in a sense to say, okay, are you following really also to give you the time to learn, give you the time for success, and give you the time for happiness. Yes. So, and based on this mix, what we are trying to bring there, and also the good news with the COVID time was we used, especially at Standard Charter, in most of our location, we completely redesigned the locations. Yeah, so if I'm now back here in the office. I was astonished how big the floors are, because before it was like very traditional offices, table. Yeah, so and now they are so diverse. There is this whiteboard, there's this corner, there's that. So it's like amazing how the floor space looks now much bigger, but it's at the end the same floor space. But now you have a lot of colors, a lot of different things, where I also see the people are coming now back to the office, and they love also what is happening in addition, just as the work itself. So the learning is going so far beyond. Yes. And that's the motivation coming to you, Claire. What is not easily to address, but at the end is trying to give the people more motivation to give them possibilities to understand. It's not just, okay, my motivation is compensation, and if I'm not getting my compensation, then I'm moving to the next one.
Yeah. So I mean, we're seeing some sort of consistent themes here around almost the individual self-motivating, self-learning, but and a shift in the expectations on leadership and management in creating the right kind of authentic space, respectful space for that person to be able to, choose more of their own adventure, if you like, but with visibility and support around it. And then we're seeing this kind of strong human belonging connection. We have another question, comment in the chat from Nashia about the kind of the process. There's around circular and evolutionary development processes. So as this move to much more iterative styles of continuous learning, continuous feedback that actually organizations are looking to achieve from innovation. How are we building the skills for people to think like that? Anybody like to comment? I think all of you would have. So Young, maybe what do you see about your clients, organizations, and your own teams are doing to build this kind of continuous resilience in adversity, in ambiguity that we.
Yeah, I mean, we're a startup, right? So I think resilience is built into, in some ways, it attracts people who are, I think, either risk-seeking or more comfortable with risk, or the perception of risk. I would say perception, because, just because you work for a bank, it doesn't mean that, you don't have these risks. But obviously, startup is a more risky environment, right? Especially during COVID, because you're always fundraising. It's a much more adventurous, let's say, journey than when I used to work for a bank too. So I say one of the things is, we're really intentional about also giving opportunities for people to try things, because we have a really small team. It's not like you have a team of, people who can do the same task. And so you're having to constantly be stretched out of your comfort zone and try new things. We've never tried anything before. You're building new products that no one has ever tried before. And so I think that in that, in the beginning, it's always very, very terrifying for people to step out. I'll give you just a story, because I think stories sometimes illustrate. Someone, a very junior person, she had just joined, from Polytechnic, and she was in the marketing role. And said, well, one of the really important parts of marketing is you have to go talk to customers, and not just design marketing strategies, but literally go on the ground and talk to real humans. And so I said, well, retail is one of our big industries. Guess what? We're surrounded by lots of retailers. So why don't you spend the day going to interview and stop at every retail store and interview them? She was terrified of doing this. And then, so we had them in pairs, and then they went out and did it. And then at the end of the day, I said, what percentage of people do you think will respond or even give you their contact information? They're like, I don't know, 10%, and then, they went off and did it, and came back, and it was like 70%, right? Of people who connected them. And it was just one of those things where you push the people out of their comfort zone, have them try it. She loved it. She was awesome. Like, she was able to build rapport, encourage each other. So it was really about these little wins, pushing them in the comfort zone, but giving them some training to get there. But at the end of the day, you can't give them full training. They got to kind of go do it. And then also kind of being okay if it doesn't go well, right? And then let's learn from that. Let's never waste a mistake. Let's never waste a failure. Let's take some time to think about what we could have done better or differently. And it's super interesting, but I think her confidence level built significantly, because she had never tried anything like that before. And so I think we are constantly looking at ways of how we can create these kind of opportunities to try new things while giving them some safety, a little bit of training, actually not too much, because sometimes the learning comes from trying it, making mistakes, and then reflecting back later. So it's a combination of both things. So that's just, one, kind of example of kind of more of a philosophy, that we follow, and we don't always get it right, and so I think that none of these things are perfect. You try your best, and I think building a learning culture where you're reflecting back and saying, what could I have done differently? What could I have done better? I think is more important than getting it right. There's no such thing as getting it right.
Maybe Claire, let's also give a kind of from the enterprise perspective to answering this question. Okay, if I'm starting, what was the easier one, because this is quite traditional in such complex enterprises and so on, is like, yes, we have like this annual performance review, we have like, target setting with all the employees, and then even with the management and so on, and then based on the targets and the progress, and there's a performance rating, but annually, to make it clear, and then there's a feedback, and then there is a rating, and then also the compensation based on that. So that is more the traditional. So this year, so I have to be careful, because we are really also in the learning phase. We completely changed now our performance system, and that's called now My Performance. The first biggest challenge for the management and leadership team is continuous feedback. So it's not annually, it's now continuously. Then also like how the targets are set, and also with the feedback and all of this is related, there is also not and scoring anymore. Yes, so because that makes me a bit like now also to see, okay, how we are ending up at the end of the year, because still the people start to compare. Oh, I'm better performing than the other one. Why I'm not getting this, and so on. We are still in a kind of performance culture, of course, but the point is like now how we will go with that, and this is now with this new system, My Performance, there's this continuous feedback gives you better performance enablement, rather than just the annual feedback and the scoring and all of that. So long story short, as I said, we are quite early in this stage. The point, what is really, and I think Keith, you made this point at the beginning, what is definitely the biggest challenge for an enterprise is the management. Yes, so because this kind of continuous feedback is not the problem for the one as a recipient, it's more like now as a management, because you have different management styles, and you're starting with this kind of command and control managers who are usually quite successful in the annual feedback and so on. Yes, so will never work. Yes, so and that is like now where we going also in this kind of transition to see, okay, how we are going, and all this different management leadership style, different behavior of continuous learning and continuous feedback, this kind of My Performance focused. So it's like as I said, we are in early stage, but I'm very much convinced, yes, that's now with the new generation, with all of that, the right way to motivate the people, aspire the people, and also give them really more attention, that they, not get really in this kind of mode just to leave and all of that they get more belonging. But it's complex. So that's my summary. It's not so easy like to say, okay, here I have like this, maybe with 10 up to 70 people, you can still do it, because like the brain is like, I can work maybe maximum 70 people. I can keep the names and the faces, but when you're going beyond of that, you still get, you can't be so personal anymore, but then you still need to engage and to give the continuous feedback to the individuals.
So this theme of if you like the leadership help, or the help that manages, leaders of if you like a kind of an older, how are we what are some of the things that we're doing to kind of address the new ways of thinking, of leading, of providing feedback, that then Chelvin, you're looking at the kind of the system as a whole in Singapore and beyond. We're also getting, I should make a note, we're getting close to time already. So perhaps if you could make an observation and kind of as a bit of a closing comment, I'd love everybody else to give a wrap as well. That would be great.
Yeah, I just want to make one point. At the ecosystem level, I mean, when we look at organizations who do this very well, right? I think there's usually a place where we say it's a productive, we sort of put them in the 3 different layers, right? One is really ensuring that our workforce are at their productive capacity. You provide an environment where they can be the most productive with the most resources and the agile way of doing things. And but there's also a layer where you allow a safe space for them to learn. And that's where usually they might not be the most productive, but there is organizations provide a space for you to learn, right? There's always the last one is usually the hardest, and we see that a lot in mid-careerists today, which is the safety net. When you go into your non-productive zone, what do you do to bounce back, right? And even in the tech space, things are changing so fast, and we see a lot of mid-careerists who move over from non-tech to tech space. It's harder to learn compared to, of course, our digital natives today. But when you fall back into the non-productive zone, what do you do? And some of the organizations that we've seen doing very well, they usually have a very strong support network where they allow them to come together and learn about the challenges together and sort of egg each other along to say that let's go for classes together, let's go and do this project together, let's look for one another. It's not that difficult. And there's a safe space where you can say out that it's okay to say that you're not doing well. It's okay to say that you are not coping, right? And sometimes they pair up the reverse mentoring. They pair the digital natives together with the mid-careers together, for example, because a fresh mid-careers coming into this zone actually has a lot of other tech skills, non-tech skills, right? Your soft skills, which is really, really helpful. And so they pair up together and they sort of do it, and they come out of the non-productive zone together. So I wanted to say that we see that at the ecosystem level, for workplace environments to be very healthy and very effective, that it's almost akin to by design. It's designed to come out that way. I mean, increasingly, we're talking about how we want to design our work life. And really, I think going forward, that is the way to go for our talent of tomorrow or talent of today, you and I as well. Yeah.
We literally have 1 minute, and I might just ask Keith to sort of close out from a perspective. We've covered a whole lot of different comments, but please, your sort of parting thoughts from observations of the last 10 minutes conversation. Great.
Share your knowledge, and let's collaborate together. That's the most important and the most important way we're going to really survive this constant change. That was.
And I understand in the introductions that all of you actually share each other's skills perspectives on a day-to-day basis as well, and I think that's a great recognition of how people from different elements of the community overall can actually learn from each other to solve the greater problem of building talent that will fuel the economy, fuel people, fuel society, fuel people's health and well-being. So thank you each. John, welcome back. Time already. I can't believe it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm really impressed with this group we managed to assemble. And as I look at it, we are a diverse group because I met Sebastian 3 years ago, but actually I only think I met him in person that once. Keith, I've been working with over the last couple of years, but probably only 10 times maybe in person. Claire, over the last 2 years and never met in person. So Young gave a keynote presentation last year, haven't met in person, and you're in California right now. Chelvin I met last week. So we've all figured out how to work in this environment, but I think the common theme has been we all need to figure out how to meet in work in small, quite diverse groups across different locations, across different qualifications or backgrounds, and particularly take the learning to its practical application. At which point I'm going to put Keith on the spot, because I know that we have discussed the TBA slot that we have in the program tomorrow morning, and how we're going to fill that with a mystery presentation from the FinTech SG, the SGUS program.
Well, we're hoping to have some
Yep.
of one of the teams come in and share some of their learnings. We got to see their midterm presentations today, and they ranged a lot of APIs being used, hint, but they ranged from decentralized finance and a whole new system they had developed there to recycling clothing and the importance of doing so and enabling that with some new automation and online and so forth. So really neat projects that the students in the FinTech SG program have come up with. And thanks to our great partnership with SkillsFuture, Chelvin, and others as well.
Okay, so more on that in a little bit. Everyone's going to see that TBA slot filled in the agenda shortly. But thank you very much, everyone, for an engaging discussion. And I think we've all learned from this experience. And thanks very much, Claire, for moderating.
Oh, really. It was a privilege and a real delight to hear everybody's insights. Fantastic. I'm inspired. Fired up.